Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to my channel. Welcome to another video. And in this video, we're going to be discussing symbolism, Freemasonry, astrotheology, mathematics, and how they kind of tie together. Some kind of controversial topics. Freemasonry is one of those things where a lot of people are misinformed, maybe even myself, who knows. Point being, a lot of people tend to have just a full-blown negative connotation about Freemasonry. They don't seem to like secrets, even though people seem to hold secrets within themselves all the time, which is ironic hypocrisy, but that's not the point. Point being, going to be using one of my personal favorite symbols. It's one of my favorites to the point where I got it tattooed on the back of my head, the Caduceus, right? And so without further ado, right, we'll just kind of fix that a little bit, I guess. Forgive my crude artwork, or don't, I don't care. At least not enough to lose sleep over it. But so the Caduceus is consisting of a staff with a ball at the top, wings below it, and two serpents that wind up from the base of the staff, not all the way up to the top. Right, you see this on a lot of the medical industry, which it's used in conjunction with a lot of pharmaceuticals. Right, a lot of pharmaceutical nonsense, hand sanitizer. I mean, you'll see it just about everywhere. And of course, there's its counterpart, the Asclepius, right, which is just the single serpent, but that's not exactly my point. Point is, as you look at this symbol, not only does it kind of represent that double helix of DNA, right, where you've got base pairs of that code, right, where they're opposites of each other. You know, there's adenosine, cytosine, I believe it's glycine and thymine, right? Where I believe C and G bond together, A and T bond together. If you're talking about RNA, this one is separate. I don't remember all of the biology behind it, so let's not get caught up in the specifics on that. Right, point being, you've got that double helix of DNA where you've got the two opposites. You've got the sine and the cosine, right? With the sine wave comes the cosine wave, right? It's equal and opposite counterpart. So, in terms of Freemasonry, the left-hand pillar, the right-hand pillar, right? You've got the sun countered by the moon, and somewhere in between, in that middle path, the pillar of the eye, the path of wisdom, or the path of will, I should say. Some people refer to it as the path of wisdom, but whether or not they're actually correct, I don't know. I'm not affiliated with any Masonic lodges, outside of just kind of talking with some of the folks there. I've got friends in Freemasonry. I've got friends that advocate against it, so I'm not really whatever. Right? You've got your positive, you've got your negative, and this would be like the neutral ground right here. Neutral, stable, balanced. Right? But in terms of astrotheology, let's say this is the sine wave, and we can associate it with the sun. at least for now. So you've got the peaks and the valleys. This can correspond to noon and midnight. Noon or midday. And then the sun begins to set. And this point where it crosses this kind of horizon, so to speak, we'll call that sunset right here. And right here where it crosses that horizon again, sunrise. So you've got a cycle, right? A frequency, a repetitive occurrence when it comes to the way that the sun works from the perspective of Earth. That's the key thing here, is it's from the perspective of Earth, right? So you've got your sunset, sunrise, you've got your noon or midday sun, and your midnight sun, which corresponds with the moon to an extent, because the full moon is nothing but a reflector of the sun, but the moon is still out there, right? Think of the moon, like we've talked about, as the lower vibration of light energy, or don't, think about whatever the hell you want to think about. Now, on the annual scale, the midday sun, I mean, you can call it the solstice, right? But as far as the actual heat that comes in during the hot summer months, it's actually hottest around July, August, right? When the sun is in the house of Leo. Typically. Sometimes it's hotter in September. I guess it depends on the relative weather patterns when it comes to humidity, when it comes to cloud formations, and so on and so forth. But generally, the sun's not going to be hottest when it's in the middle of June. It's going to be a little bit hotter later on in the summer, right? But the beginning of summer corresponds with the summer solstice. And then you've got the winter solstice at its opposite. And again, it's not necessarily always coldest when it's at the lowest of this valley, right? They say the night's always darkest before the dawn. So right before the sun's going to break this horizon is usually when it's darkest, when it's coldest. After the sun's starting to come back into power is usually when the heat starts to come back, and usually after it's starting to fall a little bit is when we experience that heat. Now, according to astronomy, this has to do with the axial tilt of the Earth in relation to the sun. I'm not necessarily a flat earther, nor am I necessarily a round earther. I'm just taking the information and addressing it based on what's given. Right? Now, on the astrological scale, the hottest aspect of all this would be like the age of Leo, and opposite of Leo would be age of Capricorn, or would it be Aquarius? Because Capricorn would be opposite of Cancer, I believe. I don't know. I know a bit about the astrological aspect of the occult, but that's not really been my interest for a while, right? I've been more into the inner workings more rather than the outer workings. But the age of Aquarius would be like right here. And Leo, yeah, Leo would be this part of the moon, and the sun opposite would be age of Aquarius. Cancer's right here, Capricorn right there. Okay. So at this sunset right here, where the sun is crossing that horizon, right, you've got the autumnal equinox, where there's a balance between the ebbs and flows. And then over here, you've got your spring equinox. And beyond that, you know, there's the Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer. I mean, those are kind of tying in to all this anyways. But back to the point, you've got your moon as well that also goes through its phases, maybe not in direct correlation to the sun, but you've got your moon cycles, you've got your I guess the lunar cycles would kind of correspond strongly with the you know, moon, month. I don't know why I drew a blank on that one. But, so the aspects of astrotheology and time in the sky. Now, here's where it ties a little bit more into Freemasonry and in that middle pillar. Right? At that equinox, when the light and the darkness, the sun and the moon are of equal balance, where they're crossing over, you know, it's a bit symbolic. Okay, so you've got one aspect of time here. You've got another aspect of time here, right? The way the sun moves, the way the moon moves. But somewhere in between, there's that silver lining that is steady, kind of a collapse of a wave function, but it's steady, moving across one axis, just going, balanced, even flow state, whatever you want to call it, that middle pillar of Freemasonry, the middle path of Buddhism, and that is the path of the seer, that sees beyond the duality of the sun and the moon, and recognizes that ultimately there's only the now, the eternal now, right? So tying it back into the Caduceus, one serpent would be your sun, one would be your moon, and transcending that duality would be the eternal present moment, right? So you've got the sun and the moon kind of representing the past and the future as well, right? The different aspects of time outside of the now. You've got your past and your future, and you've got the present moment, right? The past and the future without the present moment is just two serpents fighting. You know, they're not ascending anything. They're just kind of fighting against each other, twirled, tying each other in knots, not going anywhere. But with the present moment, they can be used as a tool for ascension and greater knowledge. However, the present moment awareness ultimately is of higher importance than past and future. But ultimately, how do you know more about the now? By understanding more about the past And by understanding more about the past, you get to know more about the now and know better where you will be going. So it's important to understand and be able to look at and discern the truth from the falsehood in regards to the past. However, if one is caught up tripping about some stuff that happened in the past, usually they're out of the present moment. Like we've talked about, if you got one foot in the past and one in the future, you're pissing on today. So, what's the takeaway here? The path of the prophets, the path of the seers, transcends the duality of the sine and cosine wave, right? And realizes that those two seemingly opposite things and seemingly separate things are ultimately inseparable. And so the way to transcend that is present moment awareness, right? That middle pillar. And in Freemasonry, that middle pillar is ultimately where one finds the tree of life. Or at least so has been explained to me via the symbolism that I've studied. And don't get me wrong, I'm no expert on Freemasonry. I know a thing or two about Freemasonry. I wouldn't even say I know a whole lot about it. I've studied some of the symbolism, I've meditated upon the symbolism, and I've gained some understanding on it. With that being said, I'm like in regards to Freemasonry, I'm not a Freemason, and so I can't say with 100% confidence that this is the best interpretation of even the basic symbolism, but point being is the symbol of the Caduceus, Astrotheology, mathematics, the sine and cosine wave, all these things tie together, even within the concept of our DNA, and I mean the concept of epigenetics, of being able to consciously alter our own DNA. Like all these things kind of tie together, but that's alchemy right there. But hope you guys got something out of this one, right? If you did, great. If you didn't, great. I'm open to suggestions, comments, questions, concerns, the like. But yeah, no, just figured I'd share a little bit of what's been on my mind. Later.